All right. Welcome in. We are back. It is Bears Nation podcast. It is Wednesday, October 11th. And there's a lot to talk about in the Bears' upcoming game, actually, against the Minnesota Vikings. Some big news that happened yesterday that very much impacts this game. And it's going to be I can't believe I'm having positive feelings about the Bears, but we'll get into it. Myself, Jake Hassan, joined as always by Kevin Lapka. This is Bears Nation podcast brought to you by OnTap Sportsnet. And as I said, this is a preview episode of the Bears' upcoming matchup against the Minnesota Vikings. Really a tank off, if you will, a race to a top 5 pick. Perhaps race to the basement of the NFC North even, although I think the Packers might now be in that race as well because, oh, boy, were they terrible on Monday. But this is Bears Nation podcast and not Packers Nation podcast. And we're going to talk about the upcoming game. And, I mean, we'll just get right to it, Kevin. I mean, Justin Jefferson goes on IR. The Vikings' best player, one of the best receivers, if not the best receiver in the entire NFL, a guy who has torched you before, and now he's out, and he might miss both games. Well, no, he will miss both games, right? Because he's out for at least 4 weeks, so he will miss both games against the Bears now, and that's Kirk Cousins' safety blanket. That is the guy who has elevated Kirk Cousins to slightly above average quarterback play over the last couple of years, and now that guy is out. And for a Bears secondary that is banged up, and we'll see what the injury report looks like today. We'll see if you get anybody back in the secondary. But, I mean, Kev, this was already a game that the Bears would have a chance to win. I mean, now you got to feel pretty good that they win this game.
I think they do. And we'll get those predictions in later in the episode. We'll lock it in. But first of all, he'll miss the first game against the Bears. They don't play the Vikings again until November 27th. So there's a chance Jefferson could be back. But this is an issue.
I mean, by then, if the Vikings continue to bottom out, they might be tanking full blown for Caleb Williams.
100%. And I think that's the case here. I think you're looking at a Vikings team without Justin Jefferson for the next 4 weeks, with Kirk Cousins just still getting obliterated every game, that is on the verge of implosion, that is going to come to this realization that we either have to pay Kirk Cousins a ton of money in a contract extension and kind of run back this whole – yeah, exactly. Run back this whole, win 10 games in the playoffs
that thing. I want to point out is, I don't know if you saw this, Kevin, and some of our viewers, listeners might not know this. The Vikings literally yesterday, game hasn't even been played yet. Justin Jefferson has been on IR for exactly like 45 minutes at this point. And the Vikings brought in a bunch of veteran quarterbacks.
Saw that.
Quarterbacks, not wide receivers. So, like, read the writing on the wall here. Like, the Vikings aren't going to run it back with Kirk Cousins. If they lose this game, and maybe they're already playing for without having lost this game. Like, if they lose this game, they might bring in a Colt McCoy and start calling up the Commanders, the Jets, whoever, the Falcons, to be like, hey, you want Kirk for 1 year to try and get you to the playoffs or win a playoff game for you? Because we're done with this guy. We ain't bringing him back. I mean, there's a reason they didn't sign into extension over the offseason.
There is a reason.
This is going to be a new era of Vikings football going forward. Like, after this season, like, this was the last hurrah. This was it. And now Jefferson's on IR for an ambiguous amount of time. And they were bad before that. And they're bringing in veteran QBs like Colt McCoy. I think, 8 of them? I think it was 8 quarterbacks. Something.
Well, it was 8 players. Among them was
including
a couple
Colt McCoy.
Yeah.
And so, obviously this isn't going to happen now. It's Wednesday already. Kirk Cousins is going to play this game. But after that, like, anything goes. So by that second Vikings game, you might be getting Colt McCoy. You might be getting who's their backup? Nick Mullins, I think
Mullins,
Yep. I mean, at that point, call Joe Webb, see what he's up to.
Webb.
It might be real bad. It might be doomsday for the Vikings after assuming they lose this game. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm sorry, I cut you off. Continue.
No, I mean, you're right. And look, that's going to play a factor in the way I evaluate this game. Like, you look at this team, they understand that they're 1-4. They probably at this point, and I know other fans understand this, and I wonder if Kevin O'Connell and the team does as well, was, hey, you won 13 games last year, but you were 11-0 in 1-score games. And everybody called you out as being the fluke team. Everybody called you out as being the luckiest team in NFL history with all the things that happened right in that Bills game and the fumble at the 1-yard line and all of their great wins didn't seem valid. And you were down to the Colts 34-3 and you came back luckily and all of this stuff. And then you got bounced in the first round of the playoffs. And it was kind of like an affirmation that, yeah, that team was kind of fake. And this is your year to kind of prove that, hey, last year wasn't fake. We got a squad here. We got talent. We're going to run it back and win the North again. And they've played all one-score games through the entire season, and they're 1-4 in those one-score games, and it's exactly what we thought. And I think that realization is going to come across the front office of the Vikings and realize, hey, this is not sustainable. This is not obviously sustainable for us to win a championship. And those things are going to affect the locker room. And that's why I say I think this team is on the verge of implosion. And if I'm being honest, like if I'm Justin Jefferson, and you couldn't agree to a contract extension in the offseason, how do you – it's unfathomable that you can't – you didn't just put a blank check and give it to arguably someone who could go down as the greatest wide receiver of all time. Like, he's on pace to go
the
down.
Reigning offensive player of the year.
Yeah, the reigning offensive player of the year. Everybody knows how good he is. The gap between him and the next best player at wide receiver is probably pretty big, even though Tyreek Hill is unbelievable. Nonetheless, you should have given that guy a blank check. I don't know how you didn't get a deal done this summer. And if I'm him, I got to read more into what his reaction to that was. I'm trying to read an article here from ESPN about the situation. But you got to imagine that he's not too happy about not getting that contract extension. Obviously, everybody wants their money and is a first-round pick, so he still has a decent amount of money. He's still due to make, I think, like $14 million or $19 million next year. Yeah, $19.7 million next year in 2024 if there is no agreement before then. But you want that long-term security. Jake, if this is a bottom-out team and this is implosion territory and you're restarting, Justin Jefferson might want out. And that is just something down the road to discuss because I know Bears fans would pounce on that. And I think Justin Jefferson has said like good things about Justin Fields before and all this yada, yada, yada. But nonetheless, as this pertains to this game, Justin Jefferson hasn't missed a game for the Vikings this year or at all in his career. He's played 53 games, hasn't missed a single game. So we don't even know really what this offense looks like without him. Like we've seen in games, Justin Jefferson goes out for a couple quarters and comes back in. That happened a little bit earlier this year. And, they draft Jordan Addison, but this is a team that relies on their passing offense. They pass the most in the NFL. They don't like to rush the ball. And, yeah, they just brought in Cam Akers, but they still don't love their offensive line and the way that they run block. And Kevin O'Connell's system and design is just we're just going to throw the ball 50 times with Kirk Cousins. We're going to get the ball out quick. And we're going to get the ball in the hands of our playmakers. They're going to have to completely change their game plan in this game. And maybe not completely because they still have good playmakers. Like Jordan Addison's a very good player, and KJ Osborne can do some things. He's done some things against the Bears in the past. TJ Hawkinson, obviously, who's actually had a really weird season. He's been dropping a lot of balls and hasn't really been as good as they'd like him to be for what they traded him for, especially with the Lions getting Sam Laporta and essentially getting a player just as good as Hawkinson. That was a great trade for Detroit. But I just think you're going to have to see Minnesota change their offensive. They're going to be forced to change their offensive identity in this game in a way that does not favor them in this matchup, just because the Bears secondary has been bad, even if they do get Eddie Jackson and Jalen Johnson back. And surprisingly, the Bears' run defense has actually been pretty good this year. And recently, especially in that last game against Washington, they've proven to be a pretty solid rush defense. I'll read the stats here real quick before we throw it back over to you. But they're 12th in opponent rush yards per game, allowing only 98 yards per game, the Bears, that is. They're 11th in opponent yards per rush at 3.7, and they're only allowing less than one opposing rushing touchdown per game, 14th in the NFL. So this has become a rush defense with those guys up front, and Gervon Dexter and Andrew Billings and Justin Jones, that are making plays. And if the Vikings have to change their offensive identity and try to establish more on the run with Alexander Madison, who's been underwhelming, and Cam Akers, who I know has only been there for a week now, but is also underwhelming in his last few games with the Rams, it is in a way that does not favor the Vikings. And I am honestly shocked that they're still favored in this game in Vegas. That it is shocking to me.
Yeah, it is surprising. Vikings are still 2.5-point favorites. A little surprising considering the Bears' last two offensive performances, but maybe that's where that pushback is are the Bears real because they played the Broncos and the Commanders, and now you get the Vikings who have been similarly terrible. But it's kind of like we talked about in the last couple episodes, Kevin, where it's like, well, Justin Fields has done this before where he's shown flashes for a game or two, but then regresses. So maybe that's where the bullishness on the Vikings comes from. Maybe it's the bullishness that Kevin O'Connell's a better coach than Matt Eberflus. So it could be a number of things, but I agree. I thought it would be closer. And maybe it's Wednesday, maybe come game time when injuries are announced and, there's still a chance that Kyler Gordon gets activated for this game after the Bears activated his 21-day practice window. And there's a chance that you get back Jalen Johnson and Eddie Jackson and the offensive line comes together some more. We'll see if Tevin Jenkins starts instead of being on a pitch count this week. So I do kind of get it in that sense of there's a lot of unknowns, especially on the Bears side of this. But, let's say Kyler Gordon gets activated. He's going to play. Let's say Jalen Johnson and Eddie Jackson are going to play. And then maybe the Bears get some movement there and you get down to like 1.5 or even a pick 'em. We'll see what happens. I doubt it would move all the way to a pick, but we'll see. It's very interesting. I think that this is going to be a very intriguing game. And I think to make this more, spin this into a Bears direction, that this is a chance, kind of like we talked about the last couple episodes, for us to find out who the Bears are, what their identity is, what the culture of that locker room is. Because on one hand, I would not be surprised, and I think people are expecting, if you look at the betting market, that's what it's telling you, for the Bears to look over this game and to not take it seriously and to regress and to get beat. On the other hand, this is an opportunity for Matt Eberflus and that coaching staff to say, all right, this is a divisional game. And even though they're down, they're not out, but this is a chance for us to take a divisional game and prove that this is us, put up some points and make a statement and say, all right, take advantage of a team that's on the down. Their star player, their best player just went on IR. They're kind of scrambling. They got to adjust now. And let's take advantage of that. I think this is going to show us a little bit more about the Bears' identity that we've been talking about and that we've been looking for.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the Bears have the ability last year to, once they figured things out against the Patriots, they were actually able to stack pretty decent offensive performances, but it wasn't equating to wins. You now have more of a roster that's able to turn those good offensive output performances into wins, and that's what you want to see. Honestly, I know they're 1-4, and I know people still aren't high on the potential ceiling of the Bears and all that, but I'm still, and I never was at the start of the season, I'm still not at the point where if you do play good offense the next 3 games against lesser opponents, but lose those games, that it's a positive for the team. I'll take it away as good for Justin Fields, but I'm still at the point where those should be wins. You should be winning these games if the offensive output is similar to what it was against the Commanders and against the Broncos, right? I mean, everyone would say that although Justin Fields played well against the Broncos and the offense looked great, there was no moral victories in that game when you lose to a team as bad as the Broncos.
It was morally crushing.
Morally crushing. And the same things are going to be said against 2 teams that are equally as bad in the Vikings and the Raiders. Well, the Raiders might not be terrible. They're probably not as bad as the Vikings, but they're incredibly beatable. You're looking for wins here. You're not watching these games and sitting on your couch and just looking for Justin Fields to play well. Obviously, you want him to play well. Obviously, you want the offense to play well. But this is your chance to show, if I'm Matt Eberflus, and I just bought myself maybe the entire season with that win last week. And we don't know if that's true, but he at least bought himself some time. He's got time on the clock. And if you want to stick around and you want to prove that you're going to be here for a longer period of time than people imagine, right? You're going to be here past the end of the season and into next year. You got to turn these into wins. That's the only thing that matters on your resume if you're Matt Eberflus. The defense has sucked, but guess what? You might hire a new defensive analyst, and then the blame can go to that guy if the defense sucks. We don't know if they're going to hire anybody until that point. But the one thing that Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles and the McCaskies can look at when it pertains to Matt Eberflus and his job security is 4-18. Right, I believe it's 4-18 now. Am I correct? I believe that is. Yeah, it's 4-18.
Yeah,
4-18.
You had 3 wins last year. Yep.
Right, this you have to make that look a little bit better. And even if you somehow get to 8-20,
no, 5-18.
No, 3 wins last year, 14 losses.
Yeah, because you had 1. Yep, never mind.
So yes, you learn a lot about the Bears in this game. And look, I do think that there's been a change with Justin Fields and in the locker room and talk to my guy, Dr. Michael Risher. I see him for rehab and training, and he does the rehab and training for Justin Fields and a lot of the Bears players. And he said to me that Fields is in a flow state where he's processing information incredibly quickly that he's like never seen before from him. And he told me he believes that there is a switch that has been flipped with him, that like we might have reached that point where like there's a click, right? Because everybody knew that the biggest problems with Justin Fields was the confidence aspect, right? Just not having fun on the field. The processing wasn't there. All those things are connected and correlated. And the quicker processing leads to more confidence, leads to winning football games, which leads to even more confidence. And it just builds and builds and builds. And I think we're at that point where you're going to start to see Justin Fields, continue this progression at the quarterback position that will lead to wins. And I think the team just feeds off of that. And you can see that, right? Like when Justin Fields goes down the field and the defense is sitting on the bench for a longer period of time, getting healthy while they're doing a 7-8 minute drive, you notice the difference in that defense when they come back on the field for the next possession. They look hungrier, they look more aggressive, they look more ready to play. So it's complementary football. And I maybe this is blind faith, maybe this is too much optimism, but I don't think it's outrageous to say we didn't see that. We kind of saw it last year and wasn't sustainable, but it was the same sort of idea that once they figured it out on that primetime stage, built some confidence at the time it was against the Patriots last year, that switch had been flipped. The problem was they just didn't have the talent last year to actually sustain wins. Now that switch has been flipped this year, and they do have the talent to sustain wins against poor teams.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the possibility that Thursday night's game against the Commanders in Washington would be a launch point, and how it kind of had to be if you were going to have any type of success this season. I mean, we talked about extensively on Monday that you have a chance to go 4-1 over your next 5 and be 5-5 after 10 weeks, which after the first 4 weeks of the season seemed like an insane thing to say. But here you are. And now that continues with an incredibly winnable game against the Vikings. And you might be facing the best pure passer of the group if you include Howell and Wilson of, the last 3, let's say, but the least athletic and least mobile. And we've seen over the last couple of weeks, the Broncos and the Commanders game, your defense start to generate more pressure, especially last week when you were able to hit Howell a bunch of times and sack him a couple times, and Walker and Ngakoue started to finally kind of carry their weight. So that being the case, against the least mobile quarterback that you've seen up, in the last handful of weeks, you should be able to harass him a little bit. Is that going to be the case? I don't know. Kirk Cousins gets the ball out very quickly. Taking away Justin Jefferson obviously inhibits that a little bit, probably, but we'll see what happens. The point being, like Kevin said, you have the launch point, you have the opportunity based on from Thursday to now continue and build and stack these wins. So we'll see how ready they are. Like I said a few minutes ago, we're going to find out now about the Bears, because in the history, and I'm the pessimistic one on this show. I'm the one that always says, well, what do we know about the Bears? What has history told us about the Bears? History tells us about the Bears that they will fall flat in this game, that they will fall on their face and they will just completely chunk it, and that we're just going to be really, really angry come Sunday. But here's an opportunity to change the narrative and prove me and prove, I'm sure, other people wrong who are saying the same exact thing, that, oh, well, the Bears, here's the golden opportunity to win a game, and a game that you really probably should win at this point, and you just mess it up. Here's your opportunity. Create that identity, create that culture, for lack of a better term, and show us who you are, and show us that you're a team that could take advantage of these spots.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting when you talk about, like, this is what the Bears do. They've shown us this in the past, and, like, that's true. It's just like this situation this year, they get a little bit lucky because of the opponents they play. Because last year, when I talk about, that switch being flipped, right? And in the game against the Patriots, so they win that game 33-14. Everyone thinks, hey, maybe, can they sustain it at that point, right? Like we figured it out at then. Now we got to take it to the next 3 games. Last year, the Bears got really unlucky. They played the hardest schedule in the NFL. So after that Patriots game, when everyone's expecting them, to kind of come back and, mount some wins, They have to play the Dallas Cowboys, which they lost 49-29. Then the Miami Dolphins, which they lost 35-32 in a game that they, should have won if it weren't for that terrible pass interference. Then the Detroit Lions, a game they lost 31-30. Like they were actually showing that they could sustain a little bit of what they discovered in that Patriots game. They just got really unlucky with the opponents that they played in those next 3 games. And again, the talent just wasn't there this year, and everyone knows that. But now it is. So I'm honestly I think the expectation from what I know about this team is to mount that they will mount these games. Like, I don't look at this and think, it would be so Bears for them to fall flat. I think I'm expecting them to win. They should win, and they should be able to carry over if Thursday night is what we believe it is based off of history. And by history, like, it's really hard to compare by eras with coaches. Like, it's so Bears over the past 20 years for them to do this, right? But each era and each coach is different. And like, you could say what you want about Eberflus. He's been bad, and I still think he'll probably not be the coach at the end of the year. Everyone knows my stance on that. But from what we know, really, like, they've went through shit, and they've been able to figure it out and sort of sustain the things that they figured out for a couple weeks. And then they go back to shit. Like, they went back to shit later in the year last year, obviously, when they went on that huge losing streak and Justin Fields got injured and all that. But like, maybe I'm just putting too much emphasis on what happened last year in that Pats game, but it's just so similar, right? It's just so similar that they struggled early on in the year. They obviously went through hell with all the external factors. They made it out. They switched the flip. They flipped? Have I been saying switch the flip?
They switched.
Have I been saying that the entire time?
No, you said flip the switch earlier. This was the first time you said it, I think.
Sure?
I'm almost positive.
Switch the flip the entire time.
I don't think you did.
I think I might have been. Oh God, Lord help me.
I'm pretty sure.
That,
I'm pretty sure you said flip the switch earlier.
Okay.
I'm almost.
Well, I hope you're right. There's definitely someone listening to this. Like, no, he definitely said switch the flip multiple times.
Switch the flip.
I definitely said switch the flip. There's no doubt.
You did.
Okay. Well, I will. I hopefully will trust you. Nonetheless, would you agree that although they're underdogs in this game in Vegas, 2.5 points at home is just outrageous. Take the Bears on the points. That the expectation is to win. Like, if you are just an objective, analyst of this game, or just an objective viewer of the team, the expectation is that the Chicago Bears should win this game.
Very, very slightly, I would say yes, because let's be honest, up to this point in the season, the Bears have been a really bad team. They have 1 win. They're in the same boat as the Vikings. Like, this is just going to be an absolute slop fest for the most part for all of our, intents and purposes. But I do agree that this is a game that if you're a fan, if you're an objective observer, you would say, okay, yeah, this is a game that they should probably win, especially all things considered, especially if you consider, that this might be a chance for the Vikings to kind of improve their draft standing. If you buy into the thought that the Vikings are actively going to start tanking, whether that be via a Kirk Cousins trade or not, that, okay, the Bears want to win games. The Bears want to get better.
There's no incentive for them to lose.
Right. The Bears, they passed on quarterbacks already. They did that last year. They passed on Bryce Young, on CJ Stroud, on whoever else, on Anthony Richardson, on Will Levis, blah, 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 blah. They had the opportunity, they had the break, and I made this case at the time that maybe they just didn't like any of those guys and they had their eye on this upcoming class. I don't know. But the point being that the Bears, you already have the Carolina pick. And so you really have no incentive to lose theoretically. You want Justin Fields to do well so you can give him an extension at maybe a reasonable price, because he's not going to demand a super mega contract. He hasn't played up to that Joe Burrow standard where you have to pay him $1 billion for the next 7 years. That's just not the type of contract, but you still want him to do well so you can hand him a 3-4 year extension at probably going to be a reasonable price, especially if he continues to ascend. So the Vikings though are in hell. They're, like you said earlier, they're not going to extend Kirk Cousins. They had the opportunity to, they didn't. So they are on the precipice of a new era in Vikings history as far as the quarterback goes. If this is what this is going to be, and like you said, if Justin Jefferson says, hey, I'm taking a long time to let this heal. I'm not coming back hurt and playing hurt for a team that's not going to be in the playoff race, that's not going to be in the playoffs. I'm going to take my time. I'm the reigning offensive player of the year. Everybody knows what I'm capable of. And then I'll go just get my money from you guys or somebody else. I'm not going to jeopardize my standing as a receiver in the league. Like I've already built my repertoire. Like I've already built my brand, my respect. I'm good. So if Jefferson's going to say, all right, I'm out for 6 weeks, whatever, before I even think about coming back. And then if Cousins gets traded, if Cousins gets hurt, if they start sitting him so he doesn't get hurt, and then they could trade him. Fact being, the Vikings might have an incentive to lose here. So it's just kind of two teams theoretically going in opposite directions. That's how I kind of view this. So to answer your question, Kevin, no, I don't think that if you're an objective fan or even if you're a Bears fan, I don't think it's crazy to come into this game thinking you should win this game. It's a very winnable game. Again, the Bears are still a 1-4 team at the end of the day. We like the trajectory that they've shown, especially after winning on Thursday night, but I still think it's close. I still think you're both close to the bottom. It's just for the Bears, you're hoping to use this as a step on your continued ascent into maybe not a playoff team, but at least a respectable team, a league average team.
And I don't think that you're going to see the Vikings like actively try to lose. Like this is an organization that doesn't do that. At least not yet, right? Like, they just don't do that in this organization. And I'm sure they're preaching to everybody, the number of teams that have made the playoffs after 1-4 and, look what we did last year and we still have the talent and we still have everything. Like they're not going to actively try to lose the game. I just think it's kind of it's going to come to that where like the team is going to understand that this isn't it, and the care level is going to drop, the effort level is going to drop, the implosion is going to occur, and guys are going to start to wonder, why am I going to put my body on the line when I'm not even going to be on this team next year? Am I going to get traded? All these different things, right? Like just the natural things that happen when teams start to implode and start to collapse with their current roster. And I don't think Kirk is the type of guy to do that, but if
he wants to get
rumblings,
paid still.
Yeah, he wants to get paid. So. And that's the unfortunate thing for Kirk too, is this is a dude that takes a ton of fucking hits, like puts his body on the line every single game. If you watch the quarterback documentary, you saw how much that guy was getting pummeled and getting destroyed and still just putting his body out there every single game. And when it comes to security, financial security, if he were to take a hit, man, and go out for the year, that's a fight. That's a life-altering moment for him from a financial aspect. And yeah, he's made a lot of money in his career before, but that's a guy who can still play for the next 3 to 4 to 5 years and be productive for a team in the NFL. So maybe he's not going to be as willing to take those hits anymore and willing to stand in the pocket and chuck the ball downfield while guys are just destroying his abdomen region like they did last year. Like maybe you won't see him do those things. And those are really the things that make Kirk Cousins great. Like you say what you want about Kirk, but that's a dude who knows his offensive line is bad, doesn't get shaken by it, stands in the pocket, delivers accurate passes while getting pummeled in the pocket. It's a really, really impressive aspect of Kirk Cousins' game. But with this whole contract thing, I just got to imagine that as time goes on and he's in more and more pain as the season progresses, he's not going to want to stand in there anymore. He's not going to want to stand in there and do the things that makes him, a relatively above, I consider him above average quarterback in the NFL. So I just think that those things, right? Like it's been 4 games. Last week was a tough loss against a Chiefs team that you probably didn't expect to beat anyway, but it's sort of that realization that, we beat the Bills last year, right? We can't beat the Chiefs this year. Maybe we're not at the top. And obviously they're not at the top, but I just think you're going to see these things come to life for that team on Sunday. And those are going to be the types of things that lose them in the game.
No, I think you're right. And I mean, if you're Kirk Cousins, like you really think the Raiders aren't calling Kirk Cousins next year? Like you think the Falcons aren't calling Kirk Cousins over the winter? Like, and even if not to be a starter, like you think the Colts, I mean, look what Anthony Richardson's happening to him right now, how much he's getting hurt. You think the Colts aren't saying, hey man, come over here. Like we need you as backup. You'll probably end up starting a couple games. Like you think that's not going to happen? Like really? That's not going to happen. The Giants won't try to get out of that Jones contract.
Oh my God.
Really? That's not going to happen.
Scenario
so yeah, I mean, you're Kirk Cousins. There's still money to be made out there for sure. So
Giants, Vikings trade straight up Daniel Jones for Kirk Cousins. Who says no?
Oh,
Vikings say no. That's
well, I mean, if you're the Vikings, you're trying to lose games.
well, not now. I'm not talking about right now, but I don't think Kirk Cousins gets traded during the season. I mean, that is unprecedented. I
Let's do this.
understand the
Let's do that. All right, I'm
situations.
going to put a 2-minute cap on this.
Okay.
Let's do this for 2 minutes because this is famously Bears Nation podcast, not Viking. How can you not? I mean, look at the Jets, the Commanders, the Falcons. The Falcons are good. Like Desmond Ritter
Falcons,
stinks,
yeah.
but the Falcons are good. The Falcons should be on the phone right now. Like if you're the Vikings, why not take a shot on Ritter while he's on his rookie contract too? You got nothing to lose there. If he still stinks, all right, you lose out. You get a Shadur Sanders or a Caleb Williams or whoever, take your pick. But if he's good, then you have him still on a rookie deal with Jordan Addison, Hockenson under contract, and then you have more room to pay Jefferson. Like, do that immediately. Same thing with Zach Wilson. All right, if he's bad, like he's bad, great. You lose games, you take your pick of the quarterbacks in this upcoming draft. If he's good, you're set. Like I think they trade him immediately. Like if they lose this game, if the Vikings lose this week against the Bears, I bet you they trade Cousins by, as I quickly try to bring up the Vikings schedule. Like, I mean, they like, why would you not? Like, even whatever you get back, it's better than let him walk. I mean, come on. Like, okay, if you lose to the Bears, they have the 49ers the week after, immediately after on Monday night. Then you have at the Packers a week later, and then at the Falcons. I bet you if the Vikings go 0-4 or 1-3 in these next 4 games, after that Falcons game, I bet you they trade him.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's unprecedented. Like I'm kind of looking through history of the last time like quarterbacks were traded midseason, and the really only few I can find is Jimmy Garoppolo in 2017 traded to the 49ers.
But he was a backup.
He was a backup, obviously, to Tom Brady at the time, and I don't know. I think did Garoppolo play that year for the Niners?
I don't
I'm
think so.
not
I think that was
sure.
the last Alex Smith year, no?
So, yeah, the bottom line is it's a really rare scenario,
Sure.
and it's a rare situation that the Vikings are in for sure, which could make it possible. I just don't know if I mean, it would make sense for them because if you're not going to
Sure.
re-sign him, why not get return for him? Like it's just a common no-brainer for what is likely to be a rebuilding team. Anyway, let's go back to the game on Sunday. We put a 2-minute cap on that one. I think we stayed under the limit. When you look at the Bears offense, let's talk about this, right? We talked about the potential to continue offensive output and the potential they have to do that against the Minnesota Vikings. And boy, do they have the potential to do that. I mean, this is a terrible Minnesota Vikings pass defense. I mean, it is bad. It's overall a bad defense. The run defense is okay, but their pass defense is just terrible. It's not really reflected that much in the stats. You know, they're 22nd in opponent pass yards per game, you know, with 240, but they get takeaways at the second lowest rate in the NFL. So they're not going to, Justin Fields shouldn't be able to throw the ball away. They allow the second highest completion percentage to quarterbacks with a 76% completion percentage. They sack the quarterback a mediocre amount of time, 20th in the NFL in sacks defensively. If Harrison Smith doesn't play, no, Harrison Smith is active. Sorry, that was last week. This is regardless. It's like a hot knife through butter, especially the way this Bears offense is playing, and the way DJ Moore, the reigning NFC Offensive Player of the Week, was just announced a couple minutes ago, is playing. It should be a game that does not stall the offensive progression that we have seen the past couple of weeks. I mean, there is nothing. I mean, Danielle Hunter is really the only thing that scares you on this Minnesota defense. But, we've kind of seen even with the Bears, like you'd probably put Danielle Hunter is a better player than Yannick Ngakoue, but they're kind of in the same tier, I guess you could argue. Like you can see what happens if you have an elite pass rusher, but no one else across that line, that player can't be a game-wrecking player that you believe that he is if there's no one else to support him. And the Bears can just chip and double team Danielle Hunter all they want and give Justin Fields a little bit of time. And again, just with the confidence that he has and probably watching the film and throughout the week is getting a little more confident watching what some of these teams have been able to do to the Vikings this year, specifically the Chiefs and the Chargers and really anyone that's come their way. This is a great spot for the Bears to not see regression in that passing game. And like, let's be real here. Like, I'm not expecting Justin Fields to throw 4 touchdowns and 300 yards. Like, I don't think that's yet to be the expectation, even against a bad defense, but it should be good enough offense that leads to at least 27 points against this defense.
No, I agree with everything that you said. We hit it in the beginning too. This was a Vikings defense that was always going to regress. This was a Vikings defense that was always going to be a bad defense this year. So this is the third straight week you see a beatable defense, and so now let's see it from Justin Fields. So, like I said on Monday and last week, like this, let's see it. Continue to stack those performances. A lot of people are open to the idea of him being the starting quarterback for the next few years and for the long-term future. So continue to stack those performances, continue to build on it. So I think you're right about everything. I think everything you hit there about the Vikings defense was entirely correct. So that being said, should we get into our bold predictions, Kevin?
Yeah, we can get into some bold predictions.
All right. To recap last week's bold predictions, Kevin, again, your week of being right about like everything. You famously nailed the Justin Fields rushing total. You said 57. That was exactly what he got. And you were 2 off from the passing yards. Chase Claypool waived an Equinomia St. Brown touchdown. So you were wrong on the second half. You were kind of right on the first half. Chase Claypool traded to Miami for a low round pick. Obviously, just whatever you could get for him at that point was gravy. So Kevin continues to his week of dominance, if you will. I said loss and coaches fired. That obviously did not happen as you won the game. So that being said, let's get into it this week. What do you got, Kevin?
I think this is going to be a bounce back spot for Darnell Mooney. This is a player who has been really quiet, and he's aware as well. We talk about, players being aware of contracts and extensions and their future with teams, especially as we're talking about the Vikings. It's very applicable to Darnell Mooney and the Chicago Bears. There's a big question they're gonna have to answer in the offseason about whether they bring that guy back. And I know him and Justin Fields have a great relationship. It just hasn't really come to fruition this year. And we saw it early in that Commanders game, first play of the game, to take that shot downfield. It wasn't really a bad throw by Justin. Darnell kind of turned the wrong way, and it just seemed like maybe they weren't really on the same page as to where that ball was supposed to go on that play. He ends the game with 0 receptions, 0 yards on like 4 targets. I think Justin Fields is going to try, and I think that offense is going to try to get Darnell Mooney going. Like, if any team is smart, they're going to have watched that Commanders game and say, we obviously got to put a little pressure on DJ Moore. I mean, there's 3 players in the Bears offense that caught passes in that game, and Justin Fields still had 280 passing yards because DJ Moore accounted for 230 of them. And the Vikings might look across that Bears roster and say, well, Darnell Mooney, 0 receptions. Equinomia St. Brown, 0 receptions. Tyler Scott, 0 receptions. Let's find ways to take DJ Moore out of the game and put the ball in the hands of the other players. And I think the Bears are going to continue to try to get Darnell Mooney going, take shots to him. So I think Darnell Mooney has 70+ yards and a touchdown in this game. I think he catches a big touchdown of 30 yards, and they kind of just give him the ball periodically throughout. And I don't think DJ Moore is a bad game. I just think they're going to try to get Mooney going. And I think they tried to get Mooney going last week, and they just couldn't connect so well, right? Keep trying it again. So that'll be my first one. I will go Darnell Mooney, 70+ yards and a touchdown.
Okay. All right. I only have one this week. I think that this has been a trend. It's been trending this way. We've seen the uptick. We've seen it start to happen over the last 2 weeks, especially. I think Robert Tonyan gets active this game. Not active, he's been active, but you know what I mean. I think he is very much involved this week. He had a couple catches the last couple weeks. He's been slowly being worked more and more into this offensive game plan. I think Robert Tonyan has a few catches. I'm not going to say he has a big game for like 50+ yards, but I do think he catches a touchdown this week. We've seen him in these sets. We've seen him get a couple targets each week in the last couple of weeks. So I think Robert Tonyan gets his first Bears touchdown this week. We know Cole Kmet is Justin Fields' safety blanket. We know that DJ Moore is Justin Fields' favorite target right now. So we're kind of in the same vein you and I are here, that, as the pressure gets added to Justin Fields' favorite targets, he's going to start having to look elsewhere. I think Robert Tonyan, when you're close to the end zone, I think is going to be a perfect opportunity for that. So I'm going to say Tonyan. I'm going to say 30+ yards and a touchdown for Tonyan this week.
Okay, hey, Jake's saying start Robert Tunyon in fantasy. Start Robert Tunyon. He's getting in. Hey, I mean, you saw it last week. They tried to get him involved. He was one of the 3 players that caught passes. They caught a
Yep.
couple of them. They haven't really used him and deployed him in the red zone that much, but they should. Now the good thing is for the Bears, Justin Fields. Guess where he ranks among all passers in the red zone?
First.
Yeah, he ranks first. Yeah, that was really just obviously he ranks first. Yes, he ranks first. So they don't really have to search for, new ways to get in the end zone, but they might get more creative, right? And they might utilize Robert Tunyon down in there. So I like that one. Let's go defensive. I'll go defensive here. Probably the most underwhelming signing for the Chicago Bears this offseason has been Tremaine Edmonds. I mean, you brought him in because he's the guy that can get takeaways, and Roquan Smith was great at a lot of things, but guess what? He didn't get takeaways for you, and this Matt Eberflus defense is based on allowing a lot of yards and cover two, but guess what? We're going to get takeaways, and we're going to take the ball away, and we're going to be active and punch that ball out and intercept it, and let's get this unicorn, honestly, and Tremaine Edmonds, just the way, he's built, and bring those takeaways to the defense at the linebacker position. He hasn't done it, man. He hasn't done it. And, he's been around the ball, but I would like to see a little bit more from him. And I think this could be the week where it happens. Maybe they deploy him more on some blitzes. We saw the Bears blitz more, even though most of the times they did it was with TJ Edwards and not Edmonds. I think he gets an interception this week. I think he takes advantage of Kirk in an offense without Justin Jefferson. Honestly, I think it'll probably be off of a tip, some sort of tip that kind of just falls into his hands. Maybe the receiver drops the ball or something because it's Jordan Addison and KJ Osborne and not the best wide receiver in the NFL. So I'll go Tremaine Edmonds is around the football a lot on Sunday, gets the interception, and finally shows people the money that he is worth.
All right, those are our bold predictions. Let's roll right into the quarterback predictions that Kevin absolutely crushed last week, crushed the yardage total, crushed the rushing total, got that exactly right. So, Kevin, I'm going to turn it over to you first, if the man of the hour as far as these predictions go for the quarterback.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on me now. I've set
Lights
the
are
bar
bright.
high. I'll go for Justin Fields. I think he does have another good day. Like I said, I don't think the expectation should be, 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, although he's had that output the past couple of weeks, but against a really bad Vikings pass defense that's vulnerable. I think Justin has a good day. So I'm going to go 263 yards for Justin Fields. He's going to throw for 2 touchdowns. He's going to rush for 67 yards. He's going to have a little bit more of a rushing game than he did the past couple of weeks, really the first 5 weeks of the season. And I think he does rush for a touchdown. I've been kind of predicting that every week, and it hasn't really happened. He has 1 rushing touchdown on the year.
No, has not happened yet. Oh, wait.
I think he has 1. I think he has 1.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't remember which game it was. Did he get in the Green Bay game? I think he got in the Green Bay game. No, it was the Tampa Bay game, that early rushing touchdown. So I think in that Tampa Bay game, his highest rushing output of the year actually is only 59 yards. So if I'm predicting 67 here, that would be his highest rushing total of the season. We're waiting on that big play. We're waiting on that big play for Fields on the run.
Yep.
And I think it might happen here this week. So I would like to see him, I mean, hey, I don't have a problem if he doesn't use the legs in the red zone, but as a fantasy owner of Justin Fields, come on, let's get those, 6 fantasy points using those legs. But yeah, 263,
You
263. Completions attempts, I'll go 23-31 on that. 67 yards rushing, 1 touchdown, 2 passing touchdowns. So another good day for Justin Fields, builds off of his strong last 2 performances.
All right. I do think Justin Fields and the offense will have a very productive day. I think this is a game you're going to be able to salt away, though. If the Vikings are going to be as bad as we think, then you're not really going to have Justin Fields kind of throw it till
It's true.
He's not going to have to throw it that much. He's not going to have to shoot the lights out here. So I'm going to say that he goes 17 for 24, and I'm going to say 243 yards. And I will say, though, I'll still say 2 touchdowns passing. I'll agree with you on that. I don't think they're going to make him rush as much, especially if you're up in this game. I still think he will rush. I'm going to say 43 rushing yards for Justin. So it's on the surface what seems like a more tame day, but I think I'm expecting a game where once it's played out, it's a game you're up and that you kind of can just salt away with whoever's starting at running back, whoever's healthy in the running back room. I mean, Donta Foreman is healthy because he hasn't been playing, but I think you'll be able to salt it away. So I think that not the gaudiest stat line for Justin Fields in this game, but I think it'll be an efficient, productive day because you'll be running it more down the stretch as you just kind of kill the clock.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Actually, that would actually make a lot of sense. Do we have a record on who's gotten like the most bold predictions right? Who's gotten the most quarterback positions closest? I don't.
We
Do we
have
have a
not,
record
but we
on it?
could start keeping track of that now. So you are currently closest. You're currently one up as far as
One up.
quarterback stat line goes. I don't know. We were both wrong mostly for bold predictions. So
Because
we'll
yeah,
start.
they're bold predictions. They're hard.
Yeah,
They're hard.
right.
They're hard to know.
We'll start tracking bold predictions as far as record, quote unquote, for now. But you are up 1-0 on me for quarterback prediction stat line. So all right, let's do it. Score, Kev. You go first.
Yeah, I'm really scared because the Bears haven't won a game in which I picked them to win.
That's true. That's a good point.
And look, they haven't won a lot of games this year anyway. But I picked the one time I picked them last week to lose to the Commanders 30-27. So I was kind of close on this sort of. Not really. I mean, they put up 40 points, but I figured they'd have a decent offensive day. I almost don't want to pick the game because I want to mush them. I don't want to mush my Bears by picking them to win. But my picking record is not the reason that they're winning and losing. It's been a weird year picking games. For the record, Jake is 3-2 on the year. I'm 1-4. I've just been really
shocking.
off.
Shocking. Your record is the same as the Bears.
Yeah, but it's not because
last week
it's
was
not. Yeah, Don't do. Yeah, I pick the Bears every week. Shocking. See, that's so ass because now it's gonna look that way. Fuck, I gotta get a win this week. I am gonna go with the Chicago Bears in the game. If you listen to the first 46 minutes of the podcast, that should really not be a surprise. I don't know if anybody really skips to the end of it to just hear the predictions that are typically wrong anyway. I'd hope you don't do that. But I am gonna go with the Bears. I think they actually win this game pretty handily. I'm going to go 34-23 in this game. I do really think the Vikings are in implode territory, and it's going to be reflected that way on Sunday. And I like the direction the Bears are trending. So 34-23, Bears get the win at home. I hate to say it, but like, you win this game, man, and it's like you're cooking a little bit more. You're cooking a little bit more, and I think the fans are going to be riled up and excited, and they're kind of aware of that as well. So week 6, I'm going to Chicago Bears over the Vikings, 34-23. Take them on the spread, +2.5. Obviously, if you're a betting man, take them on the money line. If you are on that, and then real quick, I like to make the people some money. Darnell Mooney at anytime touchdown score. If you are one of those folks who's opening up the BetMGM or the FanDuel or the DraftKings app right now and you want to make a little dough, it's not up yet. The props aren't up for Darnell Mooney, but bet him, whatever it is, anytime touchdown score. Parlay that with Bears +126 money line. And what do you like the over? I like the over in the game. You like the over in the game, 44.5?
Well, if you let me give my goddamn prediction, Kevin, you'll find out. Right. No, I think this is going to go under barely. I have the Bears winning 24-17. Okay. I do think that, like I said, I think the Bears try to run the ball, try to kill the clock, especially late. I think they'll be up and just trying to, get first downs, not really trying to score. And the Vikings, I think they'll be able to score a decent amount. 2 touchdowns, obviously, is what I'm predicting. But I still think that there's going to be an adjustment period without Justin Jefferson. I still think that this defense isn't crazy stout. Maybe they proved me wrong this week, but at the end of the day, Sam Howell passed for almost 400 yards on you last week and a losing effort. So,
okay, but that was garbage.
A lot of it garbage time. Yeah, absolutely. But still, I still have some trepidation regarding this defense, but I think you play a complete game enough to get it done, get through it, and get a win. So I will say it goes the over, but I think the Bears pull the upset. I think they win outright. It's a very winnable game. I will be disappointed if they lose this game.
Yeah, I'll be disappointed as well. I mean, at this moment, Jake, for the fans out there who are listening, who don't want to, who really what it comes down to, at least for me, I know playoffs and all of that is just too much and people get angry about that. Like, at this point, can we have a meaningful game in December? right? Like that is what I want. Like, can I sit there on Christmas Eve and watch the Bears try to potentially sneak in the playoffs with a win against the Falcons, right? Or do they play the Cardinals Christmas Eve? I forget who they play Christmas Eve versus
Cardinals.
New Year's Eve. Cardinals. So that I kind of just want to be more invested in the Bears for a little bit more time. So please win this game so I can be invested. Again, you got the Raiders and really, maybe it's not even December, but like don't get flexed out of Sunday Night Football. That's the goal at this time. Don't get flexed out of Sunday Night Football.
I like that. Don't get flexed out. I like that.
Just don't be the first team of the year to get flexed.
Be competent.
Although, this is just broader NFL talk. Can we get the fucking, pardon my French, sorry, Mom. Can we get the Giants-Bills game out of Sunday Night Football tonight?
That's going to be a beatdown.
What the hell are we doing?
That's going to be a beatdown.
Come on. How do I even bet on that game?
It's going to be embarrassing. Alt spreads for the Bills is how you bet that game, by the way. All right. Well, that's it. We are after 1 week after both of us shockingly predicting that the Bears would lose, we are now both shockingly, possibly more shocking, both predicting that the Bears are going to win this week. So that should go totally fine and definitely won't be infuriating. So we'll see how that goes. We will be here, though, on Monday to break it all down, the fallout, the recap of the Bears versus the Vikings. We'll be here, Bears Nation Podcast, to break it all down for you guys. As always, to the listeners, the viewers, you guys are the best. Appreciate you. You guys are what make us keep doing this show, and we really enjoy it. So keep coming back. We'll see you on Monday for the recap episode. For myself, for Kevin, this has been Bears Nation Podcast, brought to you by OnTap Sportsnet. We will see you on Monday, and as always, bear down.
Bear down.